Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And if you weren't here before, welcome to the European Educational Leadership Week. And we're coming back from our lunch break now, and we're celebrating today the International Digital Education Day. So, happy International Digital Education Day. And now I'm going to pass the word over directly to Mirte from the European School Heads Association to kick off this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Indeed, my name is Mirte Stienstra. I'm a researcher and project lead at the European School Heads Association. And first of all, on behalf of ESHA, as one of the 5 lead partners of the EELW, I would like to welcome you all here today. With me, I have Anna Pons from the OECD, Wietse van Bruggen from the Dutch Kennisnet, and Daíthí Murchú. I think I always butcher it. I'm sorry, Daíthí. From Dublin West Education Centre, who together will form today's panel. And of course, we are supported here by the FE team, who you probably know by now. Thank you so much for everything this week. And before I further introduce myself and our panel members, we are very curious to get to know you a little bit. So where are you from? What is your educational role? And I think a Slido should be popping up, so please let us know who we have in front of us. So Netherlands, Budapest, Hungary, Apeldoorn, that's close to home, Brussels, Spain, Estonia, Czech Republic, Brussels, Big Bubble, Paris, oh lovely. All right, great to see you all here and to have a bit of an idea where you are all from and also what your backgrounds are. And then a bit more about us. So for those who do not know yet, in short about ESHA first, ESHA is a network organization for European school heads. Members of ESHA are national organizations for school heads and deputy school heads within pre-primary, primary, secondary, and vocational education. Nearly all European countries, 26 of them, both EU and non-EU, are represented within ESHA by one or more organizations, 38 in total. And so ESHA maintains an international network representing and connecting a total of 100 or at least 120,000 school leaders. Educational leadership truly is a shared passion. Educational stakeholders are closely linked, and even though each individual stakeholder group has its own needs for support, the collaboration created by the EELW is invaluable. As ESHA, we share and participate in European education research projects to support school leaders on topics like diversity and inclusion, arts education, science education, and digitization. And we're very happy to be sharing our research on these projects this week. So in light of these projects and the presentation held by panel member Anna Pons during the ESHA biannual conference last October, we decided to put together a panel on generative AI in education in order to shed light on the topic from multiple perspectives. So right now, I'm very grateful to be presenting our panel members to you. I will start with Anna Pons from the OECD. She has been working here for the last 14 years and is a project manager currently working in the domain of education. Currently, her focus is on the OECD Schools Plus network, which focuses on research evidence and professional knowledge to better inform school policies and practices. This Schools Plus network tries to better understand future challenges and to find solutions for these challenges. Gen AI and its implications in the classroom is the first topic, which she has published a paper on last year. That for now. Our second panel member is Wietse van Bruggen. He is a senior IT advisor at Kennisnet with over 15 years of experience here. Kennisnet is a Dutch government-funded organization focusing on implementing and helping schools to think about implementing digital tools. Now, as head of the Technological Innovation Department, Wietse's focus is on the future, making predictions on what will be developed, what is there, what is wise and what is not. He evaluates the so-called maturity of technology, if I'm saying that correctly. Then last but certainly not least is Daíthí on Murchú. He has been around for a long time, currently said he's retired. He's worked as a head teacher for 38 years, 38 years, apologies, and worked on development of technologies with, among others, Apple and Microsoft way back. And although he's retired, now he still works as an international education consultant with the Irish education centres, with the admirable aim of improving the life of at least one student. His work in education is mostly related to technology, AI, creativity, and sustainability goals. With this drive and skills, Daíthí recently won the Digital Schools of AI Award. So, as you can hear, we have a lot of knowledge on board. And we have a lot of discuss, so let's dive into it. And to lay the groundworks first, let's start with establishing the domain. What are we talking about? I'm sure everyone here present has an idea about it or has an idea in their minds. But when we were discussing it with the panel, all three panel members already had different ideas or different understandings. So for the purpose of this webinar, Daíthí, could you give me one description, one definition?
First of all, Murchú, thank you. I think instead of 38, you should have said 83. Been around a long time. No, I think let's open the floor. Generative AI, Gen AI, it's any type of artificial intelligence, but a specific one that can produce new texts, images, video, or audio clips. We'll call that multimodal. And technically, generative AI, it learns patterns from training data and generates new outputs. So in simple terms, if you think about PowerPoint on steroids, with all of the videos and the clips and everything, that learns from itself and can generate new patterns from learning from the existing patterns, and then put out unique outputs using the same patterns, then that's how I would define Gen AI as opposed to just artificial intelligence.
All right, can the other panel members get on board with that? Any additions? All right, let's run with it. Let's go. Is it clear for the audience? If there's any questions in between, feel free to put them in the chat. Towards the end, we'll do a Q&A. And if you raise your hand, you can be unmuted as well. But up until that point, throw everything in the chat. So let's go. The rest of the panel, we said we're going to start with what are the strengths, challenges, opportunities, and threats of generative AI. Moving on to the current situation, how is currently generative AI used in education, and then looking to challenges and future predictions. So I'm just going to open the floor, and whoever speaks first can speak. What are the strengths, challenges, and opportunities and threats with generative AI? This is a match, otherwise I'll point.
Can I start?
Well,
first, thank you very much for the invitation to this webinar. I mean, I think it's really exciting to be discussing about generative AI, which has been a seismic change in this last year, but also to be discussing about it with those that are really at the front line of our education systems and that are actually seeing both all of these challenges, opportunities, and threats in real time, and most of the time probably with little guidance or support. So let me be concrete on what you asked, Murchú. So in terms of the threat, I think that the biggest threat is actually thinking that this is an intelligence. Gen AI, it's definitely very powerful. And we can see, for example, with the PISA test, which is this test that the OECD runs in almost 80 countries. Well, we asked Gen AI to reply to that test, and we can see that ChatGPT, which is one version of this Gen AI, was able to get 90% of the questions right in reading and up to 46% in maths. And this is just going to get better. So it's definitely something powerful. But I think something that we should have very clear is that this is just a new tool. And it's a bit like a smartphones. You know, we can have these very fancy phones and be able and know how to use them. Or we can have these very fancy phones to do exactly the same thing that we were doing in our previous phones that were not smart. And maybe one way to think about it is to replace the word AI, which sounds artificial intelligence, which sounds very impressive, as automation. And maybe we should ask ourselves, what is being automated? Who is automating it and why? Who benefits from this automation? How well does this automation serves our purposes in education? And what are the potential harms of this automation? And I think that could help us better understand what this tool is capable of. So that's in terms of the biggest threat. I think that the challenge is actually the change of mindset that AI or the emergence of this generative AI possibility forces us into. And I think that the tech world has really engulfed us, has really taken us in their way of working, which is basically to be in a constant state of beta, releasing new and new and new versions that might work or might not work. And this is a very different way of working than the way that we are used to in the education sector, where we like certainty, where we follow inertias from the past and the things that have worked in the past, rather than all this constant experimentation. So basically, I think that the biggest challenge is that it requires a mental mindset shift into adoption, trial, and constantly refining what is that we do. And this means also sharing with others what is that we do. And the third one, in terms of the
shall we start? Sorry, Anna. Shall we just start with the threats and the challenges, and then move on? I'm curious what Wietse and Daíthí have to say about it, because what you said, it's very interesting.
Yeah, sure. I think what you said, Anna, but this kind of technology was not developed like in a rigid way and then deployed in education before we knew what the effects were and how we could use it effectively. No, this technology has been deployed on a, in my opinion, pretty worldwide experiment. And this technology is therefore impressive, but it also in some ways is not mature. We do not really effectively know if all the expectations that we have about this technology are actually going to become truth, become really an effective way to use it. This is something that we have to learn, and we have to learn this collectively. But at the same time, there is also the reality that this technology is out there, and this is influencing and making us think about the what, the why, the how of education. And this is not something that you could just. This has broad implication on all of that. So it really asks the question, education, what are we for? What do we teach? How do we teach it? And what are effective ways of doing it? Knowing that this technology is out there. I'm not saying that we have to use this technology everywhere or have to deploy it everywhere. No, we have to consider what is the impact of this technology and how we design education. This is really what this technology does. And this is one of the technology in the past 50 years that really just hammers home that question. But this is a question that all technologies ask from us. In terms of the challenges, I think I agree with Anna that we have to really think about what this does with how we teach. And this is not an easy question with easy answers. This is something that you have to continuously think about and redesign parts of your education, because Gen AI is constantly evolving and other technologies are going to ask the same questions. So maybe technology innovation becomes a more important part of when you think about designing education, where you maybe have to be more proactive than reactive to the technology.
Yeah, that would be great if we start implementing that in education, being proactive. Daíthí?
First of all, thank you again to EELW and to Escher for the opportunity. And funnily enough, I agree with both my colleagues, but I have a big problem here, Murchú. What the hell are we afraid of? I started teaching when the only computers that existed were a piece of chalk and a blackboard. And the village schoolmaster, the poem, remember, the village schoolmaster, knew everything in his head. And leadership, which is what ESHA stands for, leadership was considered to be the person who was on top. So it's interesting you started with threats and challenges. The only threat I see in generative AI is our inability to accept that it's smart, i.e. smartphone, and to accept that it's intelligent. Because the minute we use the word smart and intelligent, it automatically says stupid and not intelligent. And trust me, the human being has love, capacity, empathy, soul, and creativity in ways that are just astounding. So I have a problem with smart and intelligent, because what is intelligent? We're not going to get into this about the fish climbing the tree and the elephant swimming, but the reality is we need to, first of all, remove ourselves. Secondly, the idea of the challenges. The challenges for ESHA and for everyone, I think, in front of us, my colleagues. And first of all, I want to tell you all, I know nothing. I know nothing. See this gray hair? This is, wow, a lifetime of learning of every second of every moment. And when do you stop learning? Probably the day that your physical body dies, but we won't go into the next level. So to me, the biggest challenge is this. How do we use these tools, this tool, generative AI, not in a transformal way, because artificial intelligence has been there for 50 years and more. How can we use it in a transformative way? Transformal leadership is changing things that exist now. ESHA stands for leadership all over Europe. But as you said, with 26 countries, I'd love to know which bloody country is the 27th. It needs to get on the horse and be intelligent and smart. Oops. But if we look at transformative, Murchú, if we look at transformative leadership, designing for the future of now, for the children and their future, which does not yet exist, we need to start looking at transformative leadership. Because when the calculator came out, everyone said, oh, mathematics is going to disappear. It's going to be easy because everyone. And what did we do? I'm going to get the dirty elephant in the room. We changed the assessments to suit the tool. And the big problem in education is in the last 12 months, I've had the privilege of being asked by many governments to meet with their education departments to talk about the future of now, breaking the mold. And I'm going to each of them, why are you banning AI? Why did the Minister of Education in Ireland recently stop any transformative assessment model at higher level like the baccalaureate? Because being afraid of what AI will do. Change the bloody assessment model. So the biggest threat is us and our mindset. And the biggest challenge is us and our mindset, and using the word smart and intelligent, because I agree with you, Anna, it's a darn tool. And I agree with you. The reality is, it's what we make it. If I give you a gun, what are you going to do with it? Are you Luke Skywalker, who will use it for the good? Or are you Darth Vader, who will go to the dark side? So two things, Murchú, and I'll stop at this.
Yeah.
We have options and we have choices. We are smart as humans and we are intelligent. Please make the right bloody options to make the right choices so that we can change the life of one child as transformative leaders. Now, let's get into, instead of threats and challenges, let's get into the other side.
I saw Anna, I think writing something down there in response, or?
No, I was simply looking at the chat, but if you want me to get into the opportunities side, I can get into what Murchú just shared. Certainly, I think that the biggest promise of generative AI, it's realizing that long-standing promise of personalized education. We at the Schools Plus Network, we drafted a paper last year where we brought together great brains from around the world to look into what could be the potential of generative AI, what could be the potential impact on key areas of teaching. And for example, we ask questions like whether generative AI could provide the students with more detailed and timely feedback, how it could change the way in which we assess students, whether deep learning would be more about making sense of connections rather than connecting things. What are the fundamental requirements before we actively engage students with these tools? And also, what is the potential of generative AI as well in the classroom to support our teachers? Because certainly, I think those that are leading the way today are students, but there is a lot of potential for teachers in transforming or changing or sticking to the practices that they are doing today in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. And one of the surveys that we run here at the OECD, it's the TAVIS survey, in which many different European countries participate. And one of the things that teachers tell us, 46% of them say that the greatest source of stress is administrative work. If ChatGPT is good on something, is on providing us a very first draft of this probably boring stuff that we all have to write. Could we use ChatGPT to reduce that burden so that teachers can focus on what is really at their heart, which is teaching and learning? What is the potential there? So these are lots of questions and lots of opportunities to be explored.
Great, thank you. That's really nice opportunities, especially like when you said the requirements for using generative AI. I was like, I've never thought of that. You can just find it online. What do you mean there are requirements for it? But I'm curious to hear the other responses and reactions.
Yeah, there's a few things that come to mind as opportunities. Like personalized education is, of course, one that you could think about. But you could also like the way you interact with information. Like, for example, as a school leader, you may have a question about quality improvements or what do we know from research. What if you could try and gather that information from all kinds of sources, but what if you could just ask a question and you get an answer? Like really lowering the barrier to interacting with information and using it for your questions or getting help with. Getting more in depth about a certain subject. I think there's a real opportunity there. This kind of technology maybe really lowers the barrier to interact with technology. It's also a problem information scientists have talked about and worked on for a very long time, but there might be something in there. And another approach for generative AI is maybe making education more inclusive or more accessible. Like, for example, if you are blind or nearsighted or you have bad eyesight, this technology can be used to describe what's in your environment or what's in a textbook or what's in other kinds of teaching materials. It can tell you something about the world around you. Maybe this technology could be used to make them more inclusive and more accessible to everyone. I think there's a real opportunity there to also look at besides just directly in the primary process of education. Another thing this technology maybe could work for is if you have to apply for a school. You have to go through a process with lots of forms. What if you could just do this with a chatbot that understands you and you could just interact with that way? There's all kinds of ways to really change how we interact with technology beyond the traditional keyboard and mouse paradigm, or maybe even a touch screen. Like we use more of our natural senses and natural touch to interact with technology. I think there's also big opportunities there.
If I may ask, because right now, if we stay on a conceptual level, like in general, generative AI, how safe would it be to do that way? Because I think a question many people have is like, is it safe? Is it reliable? How will it use my data, right?
Right. So like, can I take you back again to Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader? Really, Murchú, the answer is simple. Choices and options. Again, if I give you a car, do you think when Henry Ford invented the first, we said don't argue with me, let's just Henry Ford was the man who put out the first combustion engine car. Do you honestly think that if Henry Ford knew that cars would take so many lives every year around the world with crashes, that the car would ever been invented? Do you think that when the first gun came out, that someone, if they realized, the thing is, human beings, let us be blunt here, human beings can be very stupid. Human beings can be very inhumane. Look at the world today. Human beings can be very non-empathic, crazy. We're even going to go there. It's a bloody choice we make. And I think that if you look at the opportunities come down. And Wietse, you said it incredibly there. Look at children who are differently abled, not disabled, differently abled. Intelligences. The child who is paralyzed from the neck down can now use virtual environments by utilizing artificial intelligence to explore words with synaptic connections, which are utilizing artificial intelligence, generative AI, utilizing it to create patterns, to learn from, like I said, images and multimodal ways, to bring them as citizens, which is a European vision, into an inclusive, equitable situation. No, they will never be able to walk, says I. And now I look at what AI is now doing in biomedical and biopharma. We're going to go there. But again, if we use the tools for good, hashtag AI for good, hashtag next generation AI, if we make the choice like Luke Skywalker, and the force is with us. And I know I'm making it simple, Wietse, but there are people on the chat who are saying, what is AI? And I'm just thinking I'm making it simple, but we do have to make the choices. But the problem I have, if I finish here, is the big government organizations, if we let them make the choices, then very often, I'm sorry to say this, I might be cut off now, they make bad choices, because choices are made for economic reasons. They're made for political reasons. They're made for geopolitical reasons. I mean, it's a sense of greenwashing. God, we can get into all of this statistics. I'll finish with this if I can. Of 1,000 people recently that were asked, is educators, who knows about AI? Everyone went, 1,000. They were asked, who are using AI applications? Who are adopting AI within their professional lives? 10% said they were. That's 100. And when that 10% were asked, who's actually designing for learning, utilizing AI in a generative way, text ways to learn from patterns, less than 10 people. So 1%, 100% say they knew about it, but less than 1% are actually utilizing it in their daily lives to create new opportunities for those who are differently abled, i.e. the students we lead for the society which does not yet exist, i.e. 1% were using transformative leadership. So that's just something I'd like to throw out there. We make the choices. Do not blame the government. So maybe Murchú needs to come and tell governments what the policies should be in education that's transformative, instead of us sitting back going, oh, please, like little Oliver, can we have some more food so we don't starve? We need to lead.
Absolutely, right. Yeah.
I have a response to this. Yes, I like to use the example of the invention of the car, because it took quite a while before seatbelts were where you needed to wear a seatbelt, otherwise you would get a bill, and if you were found out if you were wearing. So I agree that you have to you cannot try to regulate everything, but at a certain point there is. Like it was a good idea to have some kind of agreement of which side of the road are you riding on, right? Or what kind of speed do you have, or what kind of safety regulations do you have? Because you can do, like, I agree that you as an individual, as an organization, you have to make your own choices. But there are also things that we maybe should do on a national or international level that you cannot expect a single school or a single institution to work on. Yeah, that was one point, and I forgot my second point. Sorry.
No worries. Well, I would say, because this sounds like some future talk that we can save for at the end of the panel, if you're okay with that. Because then let's move it a bit more closer to the classroom, to the school environment. What is currently being done with generative AI in education? What's the current situation? What do you see?
Well, if I can pick that one, because I think actually what Murchú and Wietse just said, it's all reconciliates each other, and because it's happening in the classroom today. So what I think for many years we've been kind of externally blaming the education sector for not adopting technology. Is one of the sectors where the level of penetration of technologies was the lowest. We all see how Google Maps has changed our lives, how WhatsApp has changed the way in which we communicate, the way in which we do shopping. So all of our lives have been transformed, not that much education, in the sense that in the surveys that we've done, we've seen that technologies in the classroom, we no longer use these chalkbooks that Murchú was referring to. We now have all of these electronic, but technologies in the classroom, but it has not transformed the ways of teaching and learning. What we see with generative AI is that it's at the fingertips of teachers and students, and particularly students are the ones that have been leading the way. And today, the education sector is at the forefront in terms of adoption of generative AI, and it's because of students. And I think this puts the sector in a fantastic position to really lead the way, as Murchú was saying. And as much as students are leading this from the bottom up, I think schools are playing an incredible role there, because we are now in this transition phase in which the ministries, the authorities have taken the position of not really providing strong guidance or support. And what this basically means is that it's school leaders, the ones that are making the difference in shaping what is happening in their schools. So school leaders are now leading the way in the use and tapping into the potential and experimenting with the potential of generative AI before the authorities actually come up with all the regulations that Wietse was referring to. And I think that's something that we all need to be aware and find ways to really leverage all of this expertise from schools and recognize all that frontline role that school leaders are doing.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Wietse.
No, I totally agree. That's where like this hit the heart of education, and maybe even more so than any other sector. Really, from the minute it was there. So I agree with that. I would also, I remember, so I'm going back to an old point. So I remember what I was trying to say. Like, I think maybe if, like as a school, you do not buy AI. You do not buy AI. You use a product where AI is used. So I think even if you're not actively procuring something with AI, like if you look at the big collaboration platform from Microsoft or Google, they are implementing generative AI functionality for schools. So whether you maybe like it or not, this kind of functionality will become available in your schools if you use platforms like that. You could maybe debate about, are you going to use it, are you going to enable it or not, but this kind of functionality is going to hit you whether you buy AI or not. You're not buying AI, you're buying a product where AI is implemented. So in some way, you're always forced to think about how this technology will be of use for you or not. You do not really have a choice to use it or not, but you have a choice on which way and which ways you do not want to use it.
Yeah. I find, Murchú, that and thank you both to Anna and to Wietse, that exactly what you're saying. But what's happening in schools right now, what I'm seeing, because as you know, Murchú, we're involved very much in AI for EDU, which is a huge European project right now, and in Synapses, which is looking at the future of the challenges of continuous professional development, utilizing AI. And these are two big projects where I have the privilege of being involved at the moment. Anesha is part of some of these, with some of these large groups. What I'm finding is most schools and teachers are in the LLMs, and people out there will say, what the hell is in the LLM? It's a language learning model, i.e. ChatGPT. Many teachers are using it now to cut out the drudgery or the boredom that I refer to in policy, designing lessons, putting out things that are together. So it gives them the skeleton of how to create lessons, all of these policies that leaders had to write up. When an inspector walked in, you had to have a book, I'm going to exaggerate, of 725,000 policies of everything, and the inspector went, you're such a wonderful school because you are great at this, this. So that's the first thing. But here's where it is being used by certain schools. Certain schools are using these language learning models, which is generative AI, creating new text models that for personalized intelligent tutoring. In other words, the students, because the students are ahead of the curve. They're using the AI to create little ways that they can personalize their interaction with certain subjects. So, for example, if I take art, a lot of them are using a lot of the generative AI programs out there to help them to create their own art, create their own music. I was with a professor from the Open University recently who had all of this wonderful music, and everyone thought it was Queen or it came from this, and it was all generated by AI. Now, we're not going to get into the ethics, the dirty word, because what is ethics? But we're not going to get into it now. But schools, generally speaking, I'm going to be careful here, are playing around with AI. And if you play with fire, you might get burned. So it's important to understand what you're playing with. And this again comes down to transformative leadership. If it's transformative, it's looking to the future, and you're showing people what that would look, but you also need to be transformal. What is it that AI can do for me to make my life easier, to change the life of one teacher, to change the life of one child? So a lot of them are interacting with it in a practical way to design different things. But most governments, I'm going to get shot here, are like the monkey. If I don't see and I don't hear and I don't say, it'll be okay. That's not the case with AI. And in generative AI, huge possibilities for school, huge possibilities for students, again, who are differently able, and for teachers to actually allow what we call constructionism. Children and teachers constructing their own learning in the classroom. Move away from this constructivism where the teacher's still in the center. Widen out what learning was meant. Let's finish with this. What does education mean? Educo, to lead. But who's leading now? And you're right. The students are leading because they're not afraid of AI. They're not afraid of what it's doing. It's actually the system is behind the curve. It's the government is full of fear. And there's so many teachers are afraid to say to students, hey, teach me, show me. So constructivism comes to constructionism, to construct our own learning. And that's where it is being used in schools right now. I see that those that are transformative, they're using it in a positive Luke Skywalker way to bring the force to actually bring into multi-literacies, meaningful learning. And I'm really going to get shot here so that after 13 years of school, you're not regurgitating something in 3 hours onto paper to show that you are intelligent. Oh my God.
Yeah, great. We won't shoot you. But so what I'm hearing from you basically is that the schools are on the level of generative AI almost led by students. Students are probably slowly teaching teachers, or teachers will pick up on it. And the school leaders, depending on their own motivations, are either, well, running after the fact or maybe catching up. But either way, there is no policy. And so this is the state where we are currently. Interestingly,
choice and options. Choice and options.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. One of the questions I get asked the most is how can we detect if a student has used generative AI? And the answer is there is no way to really detect it. If somebody says to you they can detect it, they're lying to you. There is no good way to detect if this is possible. So you cannot make like use this kind of tools to keep it the way it was. No, this technology is there and you cannot detect it. And even if a student uses this, maybe they have gone through all the thought process they need to, and they're just helping it to write it down. So even there is no clear conclusion to be had from a tool that says this is made by generative AI or not.
And if I can,
yeah.
No. I thought you had finished. If I can just add to this, I mean, we shouldn't ask ourselves, how can we detect it? We should actually not be fearful, as Murchú was saying, and we should actually encourage the students to use it, because either whether we encourage them or we don't encourage them, students are going to be using it. So the question is more like, how can we change the way in which we teach them so that we already assume that they have this tool at their disposal, and we ask them to, or we find ways to develop their skills in a different way that already makes use and taps into these new, very, very powerful tools that are definitely here to stay. So looking into ways to detect the use of generative AI, I think it's the wrong road.
So before moving on, because I think what you're saying is that is the crux right now, and we have a lot of practitioners here. So when you say we need to find a way to incorporate it, what practical, like, can we, one or two practical tips? How can we incorporate it? Do you have any ideas? All three of you.
Can I throw one at you? Oh, let's take a subject, history, or take a subject, biology. Instead of us giving the examination to the students and saying, this is how it should be done, maybe we should ask the students, how would you assess this chapter on biology? How would you use AI from what you know so that you can be creative, so that you can use the AI to allow, empower, engage you, enable you, empower you, engage with you, enable you, and empower you to show your creativity in answering that question. The big elephant I spoke about was assessment. If you want to know whether the fish can climb the damn tree, let the fish tell you yes or no, instead of us telling them. You see, policy very often comes from the top down. So I'm just going to throw a simple one. Ask the students ways that they can be smart and intelligent and creative, mindful and meaningful learners in their own pathways of learning to develop their 21st century skills in being able to create assessment that is relevant to their lives. It's a simple thing. It's a bold thing to do because, and I'll give you one good reason, Murchú, one good reason. Those students will pay your damn pension. And whether you like it or not, they need to be able to think creatively, meaningfully, mindfully, and soulfully using this tool called AI, this incredible capacity machine called generative AI, which if it is used in the Luke Skywalker force, as opposed to the Darth Vader, I'll keep coming back, hashtag they can be the mosquitoes for change. The problem exists with we who believe that leadership means control, or governments that mean we have to know how to assess. We have to sometimes just trust with the choices and options and bring them in as partners, not as just things that are assessed. So I just throw assessment out there as the first thing. That's it. And just to say this, I've looked at a lot of literature that's out there. I've actually put together 13 competences. I chose 13 because 13 is an unlucky number. I said, to hell with this. 13 main competences, which I see in all the literature right now that's been written on all the policies from all the governments around the world. There were 10. I decided to throw in 3 more. I'm happy to share these with you afterwards to send out to others and say to people, let this be a starting document of what are the necessary competences. I'm not even going to call it ethics. That really should permeate, be part of any generative AI movement forward so that there's a stakeholder partnership, smart, creative, intelligent, meaningful, mindful, soulful response to this tool to change the life of one child and change the life of one leader. That's going to be the motto I'm going to keep singing all day here today, so I'm sorry.
I guess we'll just have to deal with that. Any specific responses to what Daíthí just said?
No. Well, I have another example of how
please.
you could just use it. Like, I think it's also important that you learn something about how this technology works. And I also think we should ask students to think about the questions that we have about this technology that maybe relates to ethics or copyright. One of the best examples I saw of a lesson where you could do this was ask students to create an artwork. They can choose the subject themselves, but they have to use it to make it in a style of an artist they like. So they prompt a generative AI to make an artwork of something in their environment, close by, in the style of a certain artist. And then you're going to set up an auction. and you're gonna auction off all these artworks, and there's someone who wants to buy your artwork, and they want to pay 100 euro for it. And then you get the question to ask yourself, who is going to get paid? How much money are you getting as the creator of the artwork? How much does the generative AI maybe have contributed to that artwork? Or maybe how much money should go to the artist for the style that was used? I think that's an easy way to try and use these tools and try and experiment with them, which can create them, but also ask these fundamental questions about what this technology is doing to how we think about copyright, how we think about ethics.
Really like that. That's a great way to illustrate indeed the division, and I'm sure this will spark an immediate conversation among students. Anna.
Yes.
I would just want to say that I think there are many examples, and Murchú and Wietse just shared great ones. What we did at the OECD last year is to look into potential examples and how it could potentially affect 5 different areas of teaching. And I've just put in the chat the paper where our participants, if they want to have a look whenever the webinar is over, they can look at it. And it's a draft paper, so any comments, suggestions, and feedback is welcome at this stage. But what I did wanted to say, Martha, if I can, is that
sure.
I think that in practical terms for school leaders, there are 3 different challenges in the midterm. Yes, because I think that one of the biggest challenges is actually setting a school level policies. So we've already all said that we still don't have this system level policies on how it should be used. That's the case in most countries, and in countries where guidelines have been provided, these are very thin. So it's really left at the school leaders. And the policies on the use of these tools, I think it's one critical aspect. We are seeing the debate on the use of digital devices. It's happening in many different European countries. What we saw in the last PISA data results in December was that 65% of students reported being distracted in using digital devices during the math lessons, and 45% of them reported being nervous or anxious when their phones were not within their reach. When we look into the types of policies at the school level that work best on the use of digital devices, it was actually forbidding them. So maybe there is something that we need to find there on how can we actually encourage better self-regulation or a better use of digital devices, because at the end of the day, these new powerful tools come in a digital format, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing I would highlight is the need to actually look and make sure that we really tap into the potential for all of those that have been left out of the current education model. So we know who are the winners of the current one size, if I can generalize and exaggerate here, model. I think Gen AI has great promise for all of those that have been the losers in this current one-size model, whether it's those that are differently able or that come from a socioeconomic background without resources. But we need to make sure that the Gen AI does deliver on the promise and really encourages greater equity of outcomes rather than the opposite. I think that there is now some recent empirical evidence of some experiments in the use of generative AI that show that it actually has the potential to increase equity in the system. And I think as leaders, that's something important to bear in mind. How can we reshape these school level policies and practices? And third, and I'm ending here, it's actually on the new potential forms of professional collaboration. So it's not just a matter of every teacher finding its own way through these generative AI tools. I think that there is great potential there. And there are some groups of teachers, for example, in the US that have been getting together to design lesson plans, to design content, subject content materials, to actually leverage the power of generative AI to have a baseline, an initial content, and then get together as a group of professionals to refine those contents and take them from good to great. So what does this mean for the schools and the types of professional collaboration that we are encouraging our staff to engage in? How can we restructure them to make sure that we tap into the potential of these new tools?
Thank you, Anna. Before we move on, because indeed I was going to ask about how can leadership and also how can collaborative leadership support tackling these challenges that we discussed before. And I'm just going to jump in and say one of the main issues that we hear from school leaders as well as teachers is that there's a lack of time. And you're all experts in the field of AI. You know what you're talking about, you're working with it, or you've done your research. Okay, I see Daíthí saying no, but I'm sure you are much better than a lot of teachers and school leaders. But if there is no time, how do you still make time, or how do you still engage and tackle challenges and get together in a collaborative way?
Wow.
That's
You see, time, what is time? But we're not going to go there today either. And Anna, I agree with everything you have said. Like I said, in the last 12 months, I've met so many governments that have banned AI. And I've said to them, the reason you're banning it, and I always get in trouble, is because you're afraid of it. This is the first bull in the China shop, which you do not control. Because this bull today has 4 legs, but tomorrow has 6. Actually, it's not a bull, it's an elephant, because it is constantly evolving and changing. Now, just in case any participant here seems to think that Daíthí is all AI, let's go Darth Vader here for a moment. Let's talk cybersecurity. Let's talk fake news. Let's talk about all the stuff that we can do with art to create a situation which is fake, false, which can destroy things. Right-wing groups, anarchists that are using AI and generative AI, which is everything to do the negative side of things. It has that, and I dreadfully use the word potential. My God, I don't even use potential, but it is capable, when it is in the wrong hands and the wrong choices are made, to be destructive, to be soulfully destroying, to actually do the total opposite of everything we're talking about. So just in case anyone out there seems to think, oh, this is all great and Murchú is looking for the positive, this is your worst nightmare if it's in the wrong hands. So transformative leadership. When you look at the fact that it can, as Wietse has said and Anna has said, when you look at the fact that it can be equitable, it can take people who are differently abled in different advantageous and disadvantageous situations, environments around the world. And I also acknowledge that it can be racist and all of these. We're not going to get into that research today. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at how it can make a difference. If we take a look at what AI has done, and we look at what education is meant to be in meaningful learning, then the reality, I believe, is that under the language learning models, I put a link in under AI for EDU. We've created a study buddy, and we're doing what Anna said, a study buddy, and we're developing at the moment called an LMM model, taking various curricula in the European countries and utilizing it so that it becomes a personalized, intelligent tutoring. We've even done it on streams education. Oh my God, STEM became STEAM, became streams. In 2009, he came up with the concept of streams, sustainability and 21st century literacies. Streams education, where we developed a personalized intelligent tutoring with the methodologies and pedagogies knitted into it for teachers to choose the type of challenge-based learning, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, to utilize it within STEM and STEAM and streams to help them to design lessons and the students to design the lessons personalized to themselves so that they could have meaningful learning within the curriculum. So again, I come back to the fact the curriculum is not the problem. It's control. We need to look at ways of the assessment. We need to look at the idea of letting go of the control. We need to become more constructionist instead of constructivist. But we also need to know that there's a devil in the house called Darth Vader. And unless, and by the way, we will never stop the dark side from using AI. If you think you can, then you need to go back to if you believed it to Adam and Eve. We're never going to stop them. But what Wietse and Anna has said is this: we need to understand. We need to be transformative. We need to be not afraid of this. We need to integrate it in a way that is meaningful. And we need to show that there is a way so that when we just said students understand what is copyright, what is unethical practices, how can we use this for good? It brings a creativity and now I'm going to use the word consciousness. Oh my God. consciousness into AI that we really need. But stop being afraid. This is a tsunami, which is an earthquake, which is a volcano. Volcanoes can also give geothermal heat. Earthquakes can create new opportunities, and tsunamis, no matter how dangerous they are, can create also wonderful new opportunities. It's how we look at it, one side or the other.
I think we're getting to a point where I have to apologize, and I thought we had 15 minutes extra than we have, but actually we're already, well, we have 3 more minutes, and I planned about 15 minutes for a Q&A. So I'm gonna have a look at the chat and see, or if there's someone else who wants to raise their hand and ask a question in person, or their microphones can be enabled. Otherwise, I see, well, this is a very, very difficult question, I think, to answer, but please tell us the most important ethical measure that we have to pay attention to when using AI in education. Would anyone like to give a response to this?
I think Anna already gave one in chat. I'll throw one in too. Where was the most important one? I don't know. But this technology asks questions about the balance between humans and technology. What do we use automation for? In what ways do we just follow what the technology says or concludes? Right? We have the tendency to trust technology more because it's technology. But we also have our human insights, like technology or even generative AI can only understand so much about us. There's all kinds of things happening in a student's mind or feelings that technology has no grasp of. So if a student has failed a certain subject and the generative AI tutor, personalized AI tutor asks, why didn't you do this? What did you find difficult? And if he says, well, my cat has died, and then that technology has no concept of how to handle that. Like there are things that technologies can do, but there are also things where we as humans play a very important role, and we have to really think about that balance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anna?
Technology is not. Sorry, Anna.
Sorry.
No, I just want to say, I mean, I put critical thinking in the chat, but I was also now saying that, and totally agree with what Wietse said. I think that if there is something that we need to encourage our students and to think carefully about is what makes us humans, and this is about metacognition and meta-emotion. So I think these are the two critical and fundamental things going forward.
And may I add, Anna, empathy.
Right.
Empathy, because if you, again, the whole idea of if in doubt, go inside ourselves. We have the most incredible AI ever invented. It's in here. It can do things that nothing else. I never fear AI. I just fear the stupid human. And notice the word I use, the stupid human that programs it. Because there's nothing wrong with the AI. It's the programmers that you need to worry about, because they're the ones. So the humanology, I call it humanology, the human and the technology together. But the empathy that we have as humans, if we actually acknowledge what we are, the consciousness we have, if we acknowledge consciousness that's there, there are two things that separate us in many different ways. I'm not even going to go into love that we have inside. But if we go there, then generative AI is nothing that we ever have to worry about. Let go, be free, breathe, and acknowledge. But remember again, choice and options. And Anna's right and Wietse's right here. If we get too, and I know from our audience here, and please forgive us if we're taking this too simply, because we can get as heavy as you want in this. But we're not going to do that, because this is about changing the lives of one child, changing the lives of one leader, changing the life of one teacher, of one person in one education environment that can bring an equitable, conscious, mindful, meaningful, soulful education to 21st century, that can take that skills, Anna, you talked to that creativity. But remember, we have something very special. Martha, for God's sake, if in doubt, go in and ask yourself, the Luke Skywalker, what's the right thing to do? And if it doesn't feel right, it's like food. If it doesn't smell right, don't eat it.
Absolutely. I see we're going over time, and I do want to apologize to the FE team because you have a full program, I know. I want to ask one more question, and I want you to answer in one sentence, or maybe, or if you don't have an answer, that's okay. You can say this one I'm passing on. When we're looking into the future, what can school leaders, what can teachers expect in generative AI in education? We're looking into the future here, I know.
The future is now. Forget about the future. Murtha, the future is right
Oh,
now.
the developments are going fast.
They
Yes.
are, but the future is now. So I would say this, don't even think about it. Learn, understand, engage, understand, learn, relearn, unlearn, learn, unlearn, relearn. Right now, learn, unlearn, relearn. That's what you can do right now, and that will take care of the future.
And I'm gonna make things easy for you, Murtha, because I very much agree with what Murchú has said. I think that we cannot predict the future, and I think it's this shift that I mentioned at the beginning of being in a constant state of beta, constantly learning and relearning and experimenting all the time. And I think again, school leaders are leading the way and helping them learn from each other. I think it's also something important.
Wietse, final words.
Well, I totally agree with that. Like we can expect, for one thing, we can expect is that this technology will keep on developing, and there will be newer opportunities, newer challenges, newer threats that will get on your road. So it's better to not be constantly be reactive to the technology, but be proactive towards technology in general, and for generative AI, for this particular example. Because that's the one thing I can promise you, because predicting the future is notoriously hard and you're probably wrong. But the one thing I can predict with confidence is that it will keep on developing. So you'll have to be aware that this will not go away. This is here to stay.
Well, I think that's a good mindset to get used to. Thank you so much for your knowledge, for sharing your thoughts, your philosophies and ideas. And of course, all the knowledge clips and links that you send in the chat. And I hope for all the participants and everyone here, it was as inspiring as it was for me. And I see a lot of very positive messages. Thank you so much. Valentina, apologies. But
Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't worry about it. I was having so much fun too. So thank you. May the force be with you, and we'll see you. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone.
All right.